Radio for Readers, Bookmark.
On the next Bookmark, a man tells a story about how risk works to his advantage. Taking the risk on the next Bookmark.
Bookmark.
20 years ago, I met our next guest through an Advertising Federation event. Here, years later, we read a book about his success. The Risk Advantage. Tom Panaggio, our guest now on Bookmark. Tom, good to see you.
Thanks, Mark. Good to see you again.
The funny thing is, years ago, I didn't even know you were a race car driver, and that is where risk was first applied. It's in this book.
Yep.
What was it that spurred you on? Because I know your father was a basketball coach.
Right.
What got you into auto racing?
I needed something to replace the competitive athletic sports that I grew up playing. I was getting older, and I wanted to do something different. And so I went out to the Speedway. Somebody took me out to the Speedway to see a race, and it mesmerized me. I thought, this is something I can do. I loved the competitiveness. I loved the speed. I loved the action. And I said, I want to try to do this. I'm going to do this. And so that's what got me interested in it. And then once I started to do it, the competitive nature and the competition and the camaraderie with the drivers just sucked me in, and I've been doing it ever since.
The theme of risk goes all through the book, including someone who puts you in a car and there was a risk there and then something happens.
Yeah. I borrowed a car. I had to get 2 driver's schools in to qualify for a license. So a gentleman here in Daytona by the name of Dan Rice lets me borrow his car, and it's a full-fledged race.
Dan Rice, the construction guy?
The construction guy. And so he was a friend. He lets me borrow the car. He takes me up to Savannah, and on the first couple of laps, I get in an accident, and we can't finish the school. So I have not qualified for my license. So the next weekend is another driver's school. I put the car back together. He's not able to go with me. I go down to the racing school, and I get through the first session fine. In the second session, I'm a little cocky, and I end up going a little too fast through a corner, and I literally destroy the car. And yeah, so unfortunately, the car was done at that point. But he was gracious enough to let me borrow the car, and he never let me. He wouldn't let me pay for it either.
People from around the country, as well as in Florida, know you for the creation of Direct Mail Express, and then later a spin-off company about that. Mm-hmm. What was the inspiration to make that happen?
Well, DME got started because we got involved in marketing timeshare resorts, and we had an idea. We had a lead generation program, and we couldn't find anybody locally that could produce the direct mail, which was the way we got the message out. In 1995, we got introduced to a couple people from Tampa that were actually working for a competitor of ours, and they left, and we hit it off real well. And we decided we wanted to create another company that did stuff a little differently, kind of had its own personality, and that was RME. And we left it in Tampa because we wanted the separation. We didn't want it to be DME, 2. We wanted it to have its own identity, and so that's why we created RME.
All risk throughout this book, and taking the advantage of the risk, including an episode here where your biggest client, who I believe is still with you, had some huge print job that you had to do. And in it, readers will find out about getting rid of trash, getting rid of extra paper, and then putting people working around the clock for a few days, wasn't it?
10 days straight.
10 days straight. You'd never done anything like that.
Nope.
How'd you pull it off?
A lot of coffee. It was for us. This was what we felt was going to put us to that next plateau. It was a huge commitment, and if we failed, that was it. We were done with this client. There's no question we would have been done with the client. But we understood that if we accomplished this, this would put us at that next level of success, and that's what we were shooting for. So really, that in the fact that being competitive and not wanting to lose, we were willing to put ourselves out and put that risk and put that effort out. And we literally we worked our normal job during the day, and at night, from 6 o'clock on, and literally all night, we put on our work skivvies and we worked alongside the production crew, and we accomplished it. We got it done.
Let me back up a little bit. Dad, basketball coach, we
Yep.
mentioned him earlier. How much of him lives in you? He's still with us, but how much of his story lives in you today?
A great deal. He is the son of immigrants, and if you back up even further, you go, how could his father came to this country in 1912, sight unseen, no money. So that's a huge risk, an unbelievable risk to do that. And I think he learned from his father, hard work, commitment. And that's what I learned from my father, hard work, commitment. But more importantly, my father was never afraid, or was never afraid to face down the competition. And you didn't do it blindly. He was a big proponent of preparation and commitment. And those are two things that I've learned from him. And I've also learned that face down the competition. That it's not, don't fear competition, invite competition. It makes you better.
In looking at the risk advantage, you talk about investing in people, investing in the clients, so that they'll stay with you. And that's putting that time in, doing the extra things, not spending money crazily, but investing so that you get that return on investment.
That's right.
Is that a principle you've had from the beginning, or you learned it over time?
Well, I think we had that in the beginning, but it really became obvious as time progressed and as the competition would come and start trying to steal our clients. We realized that we had to make an investment in our customers, because they had other options, and if we weren't willing to invest in them, they may take that other option. So we started to really focus in on communicating with the customer, opening up the channels of communication. For example, at RME, every year we had a cruise in which we invited customers to come along with us, and if they had met a certain production level, we paid for the cruise. And you bond with your customers. They see that you're real people. You can get from them information that you might not get if you're an arm's length. And that helps improve your product.
You have a whole chapter on marketing here in which the question is posed, how do I know the right media and platform to use for my client? And you write, and I believe it's, use it until it doesn't work anymore.
Correct.
How do you know which platform to choose for which client?
That's a good question, and there is no set answer. For us, it was always direct mail. I mean, so I was naturally kind of prejudiced towards direct mail. But it really depends on what your customer, where is the connecting point? Everybody has a mailbox, and even in today's world where there's email and a lot of electronic communication, the mailbox is still something that's pretty viable. So I'm always going to be a little prejudiced towards direct mail. However, it doesn't mean that's the only way. As you see, I mean, Budweiser and some of these other big advertisers, they still use TV. So TV is still a very viable medium. Even with the recording and with the TiVos and whatnot, they still advertise on TV. Traditional media such as billboards, still very popular. You look at the customer's customer, and where there's a connecting point for them, that's the medium you should be using.
You mentioned billboards. Billboards are different now than 20 years ago. They're electronic, they change. The industry had to change, and I don't know whether it's because there are fewer billboards than there used to be, or there's short attention span. Why do we see changing billboards every 5-7 seconds depending on the intersection?
You get more messages from one single unit. I mean, that's the real reason. And plus, people are into this dynamic medium. That's why TV is so popular, because it changes. It speaks to you. The message changes. I think that's the real reason why billboards are still popular, and you're seeing these electronic billboards.
Once again, when risk comes up, there's a conversation that you have with your business partners in a restaurant, and one of your business partners flips out.
Yeah.
To the point where he got so loud because you were suggesting we might want to go in a different direction to stay ahead of the curve. Somebody comes over and says, "You guys don't calm down, you have to leave."
Yeah. Was
that a frightening experience? Were you expecting that?
No, absolutely not. He's the most mellow guy you ever want to meet in your life. He's literally, I don't want to say he's an ex-hippie, but he's basically an ex-hippie. and he was so passionately invested in our original business plan at RME. That was his baby, that when we made the suggestion to change, it just set him off. And I think it was just his emotions just coming out, and literally he exploded. But the good thing about it, and the great thing about his personality was, literally the next day, he had changed 180 degrees. We were on the path of the new business plan. And I really believe he was so emotionally invested in the old plan, change was not good for him. He's just not a guy that liked change. And that's really what set him off.
Do you feel that you're different from a lot of men? Men, more than women, don't like change.
Right.
And yet you've always stayed ahead of problems for the most part. I mean, in the book, you talk about a period where you were losing some clients, and it's scary because you've invested in those clients.
Right.
But you always tried to stay ahead of it. Do you feel that you are much different from a lot of people you've worked with because you're ready to make the change while most men are not ready to engage in that?
People hate change. That is the Achilles heel of most businesses. I think, kind of going back to my father's lessons in competition and growing up in a basketball family, you understand that if the game isn't going well, you've got to make some changes, and otherwise you're just going to end up losing. And I think that made us comfortable with change. But we recognized that, people want value, and if you don't continue to change the value curve, that means you're going to get eaten up by the competition. That's going to require to change. It's as uncomfortable? Absolutely, it's uncomfortable.
When you created a risk program for your long-term clients, not a risk program, but a rewards program, to give them back for staying with you before things got stale, did you do that at risk? Was that considered a risk to create a rewards program?
I think it is, because you have to make an investment, and that meant real money. So we had to go out, we had to create the program, we had to actually invest in some of the rewards, which were hard goods, whether it's a TV, whether it's a trip, whether it's something of value. We had to make that investment, and we weren't sure that people would respond to the rewards program, because there's so many rewards programs that they could easily go, it's just another one of them rewards programs. I'm not really interested in it. So. But yeah, it worked out well. It did.
Even when making presentations, you explain about buying them dinner. Some say, why do we have to buy everybody dinner? You buy them dinner for a reason.
Absolutely. Two reasons. One, to get them to the location. We have, why am I going to leave the comfort of my home, get off the couch? What's going to motivate me? Well, if free dinner should, right? So once we bring them into the environment, now we got ourselves in front of them, and we can make a presentation. We can educate and inform them on whatever product or service. In this particular case, it was financial services. But the second thing is, why not thank them for their time? You motivate them. What's in it for me? A free dinner. Well, hey, thank you for the 90 minutes. Thank you for the hour that you spent with me. Free dinner. I mean, it's an American thing also. We're breaking bread. We're sharing some time together, and that's part of the attraction of the dinner.
Did you ever think, when you were going to St. Bonaventure and then eventually graduate, you'd be doing this?
No, absolutely not. I thought I was going to go into radio.
Did you really?
Absolutely. And then I talked to a couple guys in radio. I was in college radio for 3 years, and I was talking to a guy that was in radio, and he said, what you're going to do is you're probably going to be in some little town in Pennsylvania, and you're going to make $120 a week. And I went, how much a week? 120. I said, maybe radio isn't for me.
Yeah. And now you go around the country and you advise others on how to build their business and to take that risk.
Absolutely.
Are what you're finding generally the same? People who want to go outside of the box but don't know how?
Yeah. They have an idea, they have a dream. Everybody that has this desire to start their own business, there's a dream buried inside of them. And what they need is just somebody to go, look, it's okay. Take the risk, jump. I did it. Others have done it before you. You're going to be okay. All you got to do is take that first risk, and whenever you see a chance or an opportunity presents itself, there's going to be a cost to that, and that cost is risk. Pay the price. It's well worth it.
One of the things that I learned from this book, too, is Salespeople need to be in front of people a lot, constantly. You will get perhaps a lot of no's, but if you have a good product and you believe in it, and when you go to pitch it, you're going to be successful. But you got to keep working it, and you got to keep finding new people to prospect to.
Absolutely, it's a numbers game. It's 100% math. The more people you get in front of, the more you're going to sell. And if you talk to any successful salesperson, they will tell you, I get more no's than I get yeses. But when I get that yes, not only does it give me an emotional charge, but I've reached success. That is success. But it's all a numbers game. The more you see, the more you're going to sell.
You know, I was wondering if when you put this whole book together, if any of the things of a Zig Ziglar or other famous people who have talked about how to sell, did they ever come into your mind?
Zig, actually, it's funny you should mention it. He's somebody that I listen to, you know, good many times, and I think he was a very wise man and very practical and very down home and really basic. And absolutely, I got a lot from him. There were some others. You know, my brother, I think, is the consummate salesman, and I learned an awful lot from my brother Mike, and you know, he is always in the sales mode. And my business partner George from Tampa, he also was just an incredible salespeople, and I learned a lot from them.
The book was written, not only it showcases the company and your services, but it's an inspiration for people who are going to sell and market for anyone. Who do you want to read this book? Who do you hope reads it?
I hope that somebody that is sitting on the fence and has got that dream and it's buried somewhere inside them, or it's sitting on a piece of paper in front of them, a business plan, or on a computer, I want that person to read the book and understand that it's okay. Risk is okay. In fact, you need risk to have opportunity. And I also want the guy that's having a struggle in his business, that's maybe it's stagnant, that can sit back and go, look, I can take another direction. It's okay. And the third person is somebody that's sitting in a company right now that works in a big conglomerate, and you can take all the entrepreneurial skills that you have for a small businessman and use them in a big company without upsetting the apple cart. So those are the three people I think can use this book.
And there's a page in here where you say the internet is not the end all. People think, well, I'll put it on the internet and that'll be it. Is it because it's so vast? Is it because there's so many people competing for attention on the internet?
It's really no different than a mall or a strip plaza, right? You drive down the road, you've got hundreds of stores. What makes somebody go to your website? What is it that's going to get them? Just because you're in that mall, just because you're on that store, just because you have a site on the internet doesn't mean customers are coming to you. You still have to draw and drive people to your website. And a lot of people figure, or figure wrong, I should say, that just having a website guarantees success. Well, that ain't true. That's your store. You got to get people into your store.
You know, I thought of you years ago when the anthrax scare happened, because I knew how successful you were with mail products. When that happened, it's in this book. How much did it hurt you initially, even short term?
It was a couple months worth of people canceling orders. And
Didn't want to open their mail?
They figured, listen, if I order a mailing and people don't open it, I've wasted this money. All right? So we had to think of a way to get around that. And we actually had it sitting in front of us. We create these envelopes with large windows that you can look in and see that there's nothing in there. And we thought, that's the key. We just got to take what we have, give it a little different label, and promote it that way. And that's what we did. And it was a couple months worth of pain, but fortunately we reacted quick enough that it didn't really hurt us that bad.
It's a fantastic story. The book is called The Risk Advantage. Tom Panaggio, our guest today on BookMarc. Tom, great seeing you after all these years.
Mark.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
That's BookMarc for this week. If you have comments or thoughts on future authors, send an email to us at our website, bookmarc.us. That's our broadcast for today. Thanks for watching.